and welcome to a new episode of our program, The Daily Debates, Wednesday evening. And I'm very delighted to be joined here on this program this evening. And tonight we're going to be shedding light on President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi's 2 days visit to Greece and Athens, and the official visit that he had paid to Greece yesterday, where he held today bilateral talks with his Greek counterpart. And the Greek president, Katrina, has also awarded President al-Sisi earlier today the medal for the gallantry, which is the highest and oldest medal in Greece. On his part, President al-Sisi also had met with other officials in Greece, and they had discussed, of course, bilateral relations and consultations on the bilateral level as well as the trilateral level with Cyprus. We are going to know more about the significance of this visit and, of course, what does it suggest is the ties or the current relations between Greece and Egypt, which is of course very rooted, and that's what we're going to be talking about in the second half of this episode, and the roots of the Greek-Egyptian relations on a cultural and touristic level. But first, let's take a look at the official visit that President al-Sisi is currently holding in Athens, and we'll be right back.
Held talks with Greek officials on Wednesday that centered on bilateral ties and regional and international issues with mutual concern, including combating illegal immigrations, the latest developments in the East Mediterranean, plus ways to combat terrorism and extremist thoughts. President al-Sisi met with Greek Prime Minister Kyriakos Mitsotakis and held a joint press conference after the talks, during which the head of state said Egypt and Greece had agreed to cooperate to face all threats challenging regional security. President al-Sisi expressed Egypt's supporting stance toward the Cypriot crisis. Concerning the Libyan crisis, the president stressed that the comprehensive settlement is the only way to end the Libyan crisis. Meanwhile, the president sent his condolences to victims' families of the powerful earthquake that leveled buildings across Greece and Turkey. For his part, the Greek premier said Egypt and Greece are an example of cooperation coined by signing maritime demarcation deal. Mitsotakis reiterated that Egypt plays a pivotal role in combating illegal immigration from Africa to Europe, as well as a significant role in realizing peace and stability in the region. Also on Wednesday, President al-Sisi held talks with his Greek counterpart, Katrina Sakelopoulou, at the presidential palace in Athens, during which the president reaffirmed Egypt's supporting stance towards Greece against any escalations that would threaten its borders and its interests in the East Mediterranean. The president stressed the significance of fostering the already distinguished bilateral ties and reiterated the importance of the maritime demarcation deal, saying it reflects the strong relations and understanding between the two nations. The head of state confirmed that combating terrorism and extremism is not linked to any religion or culture. President al-Sisi expressed Egypt's keenness to enhance the bilateral ties, especially on the economic and trade levels, through increasing the volume of Greek investments in Egypt. He also invited his Greek counterpart to visit Egypt. For her part, the Greek president hailed President al-Sisi's visit, asserting on the profound historical bilateral ties that bind the two nations. She stressed the significance of discussions with President al-Sisi that tackle the serious Turkish escalation that threatens the East Mediterranean region, insisting that the maritime demarcation deal is not only important to the two countries but also to the whole region as well. The Greek leader expressed her appreciation to Egypt's supporting stance on various levels. Earlier on the day, President al-Sisi laid a wreath at the tomb of the unknown soldier in Athens. During his visit, President al-Sisi also meets with the parliament speaker as well as the Minister of Energy and Environment. Presidential spokesman Ambassador Bassam Radi said the visit comes within the framework of the two friendly countries' keenness to continue consultations at the bilateral level. Radi said the talks center on means to consolidate bilateral ties and tackle horizons of cooperation in addition to available investment opportunities in Egypt in light of joint and national mega projects around the country.
back again. You're still watching us here on The Daily Debate. And to shed further light on President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi's current visit to Greece, we are joined over the phone by His Excellency Ambassador Hussein Haridi, former Assistant Foreign Minister. Thank you very much for joining us, Your Excellency.
It's my pleasure, madam.
Ambassador Hussein, this is the first official kind of visit by an Egyptian leader, and President al-Sisi has held talks with his Greek counterpart, the Greek Prime Minister, officials in Greece, and also has a high agenda meeting that will be carried on Thursday tomorrow. If we're going to talk about the significance of this visit and the timing, what do you suggest?
I guess this official visit by the President to Greece comes in the wake of the delineation of the respective economic exclusive zones of Greece and Egypt. The agreement that was signed in August and ratified last September. And on the other hand, after the establishment of the regional organization for the East Mediterranean gas that would be headquartered in Cairo. So I believe that this visit also comes at a moment in the history of this part of the world where the winds of change are blowing. And let's hope that these the winds of change would bring with it positive results as far as security and stability are concerned in the Middle East, in the East Mediterranean zone, and North Africa. Of course, during the visit, bilateral relations will be discussed, but also regional issues like the situation in the Middle East, situation in Libya, fighting terrorism, combating illegal immigration, strengthening bilateral relations in the field of energy and energy security, tourism, maritime transport, and last but not least, the hundreds of thousands of Egyptians, the Egyptian community living in Greece, and the Greek community living in Egypt. So I believe that this visit comes at a time when this part of the Mediterranean is about to witness changes. You see what's going on in Libya and in Syria. Everywhere there is movement to carry out United Nations resolutions. So also during these talks, the Palestinian question came up, and the two sides, the Greek and the Egyptian sides, reaffirmed their commitment to the implementation of the United Nations resolutions concerning the Palestinian question. So I believe this is a very meaningful, very significant visit, whether we are talking about bilateral relations between the two countries or the regional issues, and trying to coordinate the positions of both Greece and Egypt concerning the overall situation in the region.
Yes, Ambassador Haridi, official statements have been released by both the Egyptian and Greek counterparts concerning the meeting that took place earlier today. And I would specifically recall the statements made by the Greek counterpart, President Katrina, where she said that Egypt under President al-Sisi has become a regional power, and that the Egyptian-Greek relations have also become developing markedly. Now, if we will talk about this statement in light of the current position that Egypt is playing in terms of the power of maintaining stability and peace in Africa as a continent, the Middle East as a region, or even the Mediterranean, where there's a lot of talks about that in this meeting as well today.
Well, during the last few years, Egypt has successfully entered into alliances with like-minded countries, like-minded partners in the Mediterranean, in the Middle East, in the Arab world, in Africa, in order to advance the cause of security, stability, and economic prosperity. And the objectives of Egyptian foreign policy in these areas whether we're speaking about the Middle East or North Africa or Africa, the objectives of our foreign policy remain the same. Security, stability, economic prosperity, strengthening partnerships with our international partners, with international organizations, be they political or economic or financial, like the International Monetary Fund, and pushing the cause of peace in the context of the United Nations Charter and the Charter of the African Union, as well as the Charter of the Arab League. So I guess Egypt is moving constructively, effectively, with determination in order to turn the tide of the last decade in the Middle East and in North Africa.
Very well, Ambassador Hussein Hariri, former Assistant Foreign Minister. Thank you very much, Your Excellency, for joining us on the Daily Debate this evening. And we'll be back right after this short break. Please stay tuned. Welcome back again. We're still joined in with the daily debate this evening, and we're still discussing the Egyptian-Greek relations, which are on a historical level and a cultural level, and basically on all levels. It's very strong for thousands of years, but we're going to be indulging more about the Greek community in Egypt and the activities and responsibilities or joint cooperation that they do on various levels. And I'm very much delighted to have joining us in the studio this evening to speak more about that and the roots of the Greek community in Egypt, Mr. George Rectsinis, if I pronounce. Thank you very much for joining us. He's a Greek tour guide and also an active member of the Greek community in Egypt. Thank you for joining us. Thank you very much. We are really interested, and me myself, to know more about the role of this community and how far back is it been active in Egypt, and much more about the Greek Egyptian relations in general. But if you would allow us to talk first with our guest over the phone, Ambassador Gamal Bayoumi, former Assistant Foreign Minister, and we'll get to know more from him about the economic relations between Egypt and Greece, which is also an important point tackled during President Sisi's visit to Athens these 2 days. Good evening, and thank you for joining us, Your Excellency.
Thank you. Good evening.
Ambassador Gamal, when we speak to you, it's always a pleasure to know more from you about the strengthened economic ties between Egypt and other countries. And I'm sure that you have much to tell us about the Egyptian-Greek relationship on the economic level, and how far has it leaped today?
If we go to the history, we shall start by Alexander the Great and Alexandria. And I lived in my life in the 50s with a huge Greek community in Alexandria. If you see up till now the cemetery, the Greek cemetery in El Shatbi district in Alexandria, you will find how large is the Greek community in Egypt. Mm-hmm. We have a very eminent Greek club in Alexandria and Cairo. Egyptian community in Greece is also becoming very large, and one of the Greek ambassadors of my friends told me that 25% of the sailors on the Greek maritime transport vessels are coming from Egypt, especially from the Meta, and also in the industry of textile. Mm-hmm. And Greece is offering Egypt 3,000 legal visas if we want to send some Egyptians to work there. Also, I have the pleasure to drive my car in Greece from the very north till Athens, coming from Romania to Egypt, and I have seen with my eyes the palace of the mother of Muhammad Ali Pasha in Kavala. It is an Egyptian palace there. Also, there is the island of Pathos, which is owned by Muhammad Ali Pasha, still owned by our Ministry of Waqf. But recently, now we are in a very good agreement between Egypt and Greece within the Euro-Mediterranean policy, the Egyptian-European Association Agreement, which established a free trade area between Egypt and the whole European countries, especially with Greece and Cyprus. Mm-hmm. So there isn't any trade barriers. The trade is totally free. And we are encouraging our exporters and importers to deal much more with Greece because they know our taste. We know each other quite well. Mm-hmm. And now we want to attract more direct investment to the new free zones in Suez Canal Zone and other places. And here we are talking about the latest discoveries of the gas in the eastern part of the Mediterranean, because Egypt made a good success with the European Union to establish Egypt as a center for the trade of energy in general, whether it is gas or oil or electricity. One of the very important projects now that we are trying to connect the Egyptian electric net to the Greek electric net in order to export electricity to Europe, from Egypt to Europe. many opportunities and projects. We hope that this will continue because really it is one of the dearest foreign countries to the Egyptian community.
Definitely, of course. Ambassador Ambassador Gamal Bayoumi, former Assistant Foreign Minister. Ambassador Gamal, thank you very much, Your Excellency, for joining us on the Daily Debate and for your input. And going back again to our guest this evening, and Mr. George Recksinis, if I pronounce that right, Greek tour guide and active member of the Greek community in Egypt. And from you, it would be very interesting to hear, because you get to directly deal with Greeks by the nature of your job. So if I were to ask you about the significance of this visit today, which according to the press is the first of its official kind by an Egyptian entire delegation and leadership. And we have seen previously several visits that are also been held to Egypt by Greek officials. And that in addition, of course, to the hundreds of years of long history between these relationships. Today, how do you see this relationship between Greece and Egypt?
Well, actually, this visit, most of the Greeks, they have showed lots of respect to the visit of the President of His Excellency Abdel Fattah el-Sisi to Greece, of course, and lots of my clients, they were calling me 3 days ago, oh, your President is coming, your President is coming, come with him, and so on. So, actually, the view of the visit, it's very positive to the Greeks who lives in Greece and to the Greeks who lives in Egypt as well, of course.
Now, we want to know more about the historical relations between the two people, because I know there, for instance, Alexandria is very significant for the Greek. I mean, as far as when I was young, I know I wasn't brought up in Egypt, but when I used to come for visits, we would always know that these are properties and districts or streets specifically in Alexandria that belongs to Greek people and Greek families. So today, with generations passing by, do we still find a good, considerable community in terms of number for Greeks here in Egypt? Do they still have their own districts and outings and specific places that is where their community sort of rotates in?
Well, let's take it from the early beginning. Trade and relationships between both countries, Egypt and Greece and Egypt, started 600 BC, even before the entrance of Alexander the Great. Well, the peak of it was during the reign of Alexander the Great, and then we have the era, the Ptolemaic era, which lasted for 300 years. Later on, lots of Greeks came back to Egypt by Muhammad Ali. Once Muhammad Ali Pasha came and he brought lots of Greeks with him. Lots of Greeks started to work in Egypt, and lots of Greeks friends from Greece heard that Egypt is very wealthy country and it's rich country, so they could easily come and find good jobs here. The Greek community later on started to grow up till we reached almost approximately 500,000.
All right.
Yes.
That's quite a big number, actually.
Yes, it was exceeding the 450,000 Greeks till 1950s, I could say. And by the late 50s, early 60s, lots of Greeks started to leave Egypt. So
or they started to marry Egyptians and they became Egyptians by nature as generations crossed by.
This is a bit after the 60s. Greeks were, we had 82 schools. We had a consulate in each country of Egypt. In each country, in each town, in each city, I'm sorry. Well, now we do have the consulate, the Greek consulate, of course, in Cairo, and we do have it. They have another one in Alexandria. From the 82 schools, we do have 2 schools, one in Cairo, one in Alexandria. We started, of course, Greeks marry Egyptians, Egyptians marry Greeks, and so we had a mixture. I'm half and half. My father is Greek, my mother is Egyptian. Very proud of it, of course. Lots of my clients, they are telling me, "Oh, you are very lucky. You are a result of the
two
best
great nations,
civilizations
yes, that's
ever."
true.
So Greeks generally here, we live in peace, we live like Egyptians, we are Egyptians.
That's exactly what I was going to ask you next, Mr. George, is what are the similar traits in terms of common interests and tradition and culture between both nations?
Everything is common. We just live, the Greeks lives in Europe, Egyptians lives in Africa, and that's it. Same trades and customs, almost same food. With differences in spices,
recipes,
herbs,
yes,
and recipes and so on, but almost the taste is almost quite, I could say, similar a bit. We've got plenty of things common between Greeks and Egypt. That's why we Greeks who still lives in Egypt, we don't want to leave.
Yes, I can very much
country.
relate because I grew up having a best friend who was also Greek, so I can very well relate to how common and similar we were in terms of our... Yes, everything, you know, taste the voice, the level, and
yes, the movement of the hand, the body language, we have lots of things
That's
common.
very true. I think it's maybe the closest to Egypt because they thought Italians were very closer to Egypt, but now I believe Greeks are more.
Yes. Greeks, then Spanish, then Italians.
Yes, exactly, that's true. Now, I want to talk about, well, we share the same waters. I believe it's commonly by nature the same thing on a human perspective. As a Greek tour guide as well, and dealing with Greek tourists, what are their interests and has it changed with generations? Remember that as generations changes, everything as well changes, the tastes and interests and so forth. Are the newer generations or the younger generations that are visiting Egypt as tourists very similar to the older generations? Do they, because Egypt is very vast when it comes to the different sites that you would want to visit and the different types of tourism that you want to do. Do the Greeks have a special kind of program or agenda they're interested in, and does this program or agenda differ according to their age brackets?
Well, there is no specific agenda, but most of the Greeks, they adore the cultural tourism. They love visiting the museums.
No, always a
monuments.
country with civilization would be interested in such things. Yeah.
Yes, but when the Greeks come to Egypt, definitely they go to the pyramids, the Egyptian Museum, Luxor, Karnak, temples, Abu Simbel, everywhere, and few of them they go to the Red Sea. So most of the Greek tourism that comes to Egypt, they concentrate basically on the cultural part. They like the monuments, the history, because we have 7,000 years civilization.
Yes.
I'm talking with my
Egyptian side of you.
Side.
Yes.
We talk now about the 7,000 years. There is no civilization even.
That is as old as Egypt.
That it has all these.
Yes.
Ancient Egyptian, Greek, Romanian,
so many dynasties,
Coptic,
yes, that's
Islamic,
true. That's
plenty
true.
of dynasties, plenty of history, culture, many things.
Yes. Now, there has been an initiative that was initiated by the Minister of Immigration, Ambassador Nabila Makram, who what the initiative specifically called the Roots Revival Initiative. And I want to talk about how, from your perspective as a member of the community for the Greeks here in Egypt, is finding such initiative helping in the culture and cooperation trade between Egypt and Greece?
Well, Her Excellency, Dr. Nabila Makram was very, very active, very clever idea that implemented this tour. She called it Nostos, the return. Nostos, it's an ancient Greek name, a Greek word actually, translated as the nostalgia.
Yes.
So it was a very clever idea. Lots of Greeks came, and Cypriots, of course, came from Greece to see the place that they were born and raised up and so on. So it was very emotional for everybody, and even for us, the new generation, when we were seeing the people that they were exceeding 70, 80 years old coming and crying emotionally because they were seeing their
upbringing of what it was like,
memories,
the memories, yes.
It was very, very nice. It was really nice.
I think Greek people also are very emotional like Egyptians. Maybe that's another similar trait.
Both, yes. We are very emotional.
What about the support that is given to Egyptians living in Greece? And I'm not sure really how these communities work together or cooperate, but are there some kind of open line and communication between Egyptians living abroad in Greece and between the Greek people living here? Are there like similar programs or agendas or some kind of, some sort of format they follow that would make their life much more easier in case they need anything or need any assistance? Are you aware of any of that?
Well, we do have lots of Greek expatriates here. They come and work because there are many
Greek
multinational companies, and there are lots of Greek companies as well opening in Egypt. I don't want to mention names, of course.
Yes.
And there are many Greeks who comes and live in Egypt. And after the crisis as well, lots of Greeks came to work in Egypt, and vice versa. Lots of Egyptians, they do go and work in Greece as well. So there is a common communication and a common issues between the two countries in all issues.
I'm glad you mentioned the cooperation on an industrial level or in terms of projects, and we don't want to mention specific names, but how well does boosting projects between Egypt and Greece affect the community or the Greek community living in Egypt? I know that when a person or an expatriate would come and live, he also needs the services and the environment that would help him communicate most on a primary level with his community. What do you do to ensure that you reach out to these Greek expatriates or Greek communities that are always changing in number and increasing here in Egypt?
Well, we are trying to approach them as much as we can. We do have sporting clubs. We do have, for instance, we do have the first established Greek rowing club.
That's very interesting. Tell us more about that.
I'm the vice president of it as well.
So tell me more about it.
Well, that was the first rowing club ever established in Egypt by 1930. And we had lots of champions, Greek and Egyptian, that they were playing under the name of the Greek Rowing Club. We do work as well till now in rowing, kayak, windsurf. We do have kids, Greeks, coming to play. Okay, and but most of our players now are Egyptians because the Greeks are really busy with scouting, they are busy with football, so
they're changing their activities.
No, they don't have time. We don't have time. The week is 24/7. So we do work in, we have another club in Heliopolis, we do have the school with you, we do have another center in downtown. We do have two other centers in downtown so that we gather there, we meet. So we are trying to approach also as well the expatriates to come and visit us there. And we are trying always to serve them as the best we can, to give them the best icona, I would say, about the general atmosphere, trying to implement it, trying also to approach them to visit us more and more, and to help them if they need any assistance in anything. We have Greeks that they are working in all kind of work. So we do have lawyers, we do have doctors, we do have
they come
everything.
from different specializations.
Exactly.
And that's why we're going to talk more about what's special about Egypt that Greeks always love about. And maybe when you mentioned earlier the older generations, people in their 70s and 80s who returned back, and when they went tearful and emotional, definitely the memories in Egypt has a very special place in their heart. So we'll talk more about that, but allow us to go out to this short report and we'll be back right after this. Welcome back again. You're still watching us here on the Daily Debate. I'm still joined in by Mr. George Recksinis. You really have to pardon me, but I just don't have a Greek accent.
George is fine.
Yeah, George, pardon me. A Greek tour guide and an active member of the Greek community sort of stresses me out every time I have to pronounce the name. Yeah, really pardon me on that. Before we went out to this break, we were talking about what is special about Egypt to Greeks in particular, and maybe what also triggered this question in my head is the fact that a moment ago you were talking about when the older generation came in for this initiative, the Nostos, and maybe we'll talk more about where the origin of this name and where it came about. What's special about Egypt for the Greeks that makes them always emotional and longing to this country?
Well, actually, no one knows
knows.
what's special about Egypt. But Egypt has a very specific place in the hearts of every person who comes to the country, not only the Greeks. Okay? But as for Greeks, that we're talking about now, Egypt, the Greeks, the old generation that they left and they came back with Knossos, the return of Her Excellency Dr. Nabila Makram. They have felt that they were back home. As simple as that. Even when they went back to Greece, they were saying we are Greeks from Egypt. There is something very special about the Greeks of Egypt. Not the Egyptian, not the pure Greek. The Greeks of Egypt, they were raised up in a very classy way. Okay. Well, first of all, Egypt during their days were almost 18, 19 million.
Yes.
Maximum.
You're talking back in the 50s.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So now we are talking about 110 million or 100 millions. So it's too big. It's a huge difference. When they come, they have their own memories. Okay, the way they were dressed up, the way they went to school, the way that they went to the cinema, their cafes, and so on. Still, even nowadays, we do have lots of cafes in Alexandria, especially by Corniche, that still have the name.
And the Greek cuisine is also very popular here in Egypt, even for non-Greek communities, that they'll still be interested to try the Greek cuisine. The Greek club in Alexandria is also very popular for its location and
exactly.
food.
Prime location, even the Greek club here in Cairo as well, very prime location.
And although it's very old, yet it's still popular, and it still, as you said, has this classy taste that that remained for long years. Despite the changes of generations, some places just don't change.
Definitely, but the problem is the difference of the numbers. By the 50s, 60s, we were 300,000 Greeks. Now we are talking about 2,000-3,000 Greeks all over Egypt. So we do have very limited places that we meet. So we cannot go. There are no districts as before. For instance, many Greeks, they live in the area of Heliopolis, and the rest are distributed in the rest of the city. So the distances and
quite
the traffic.
Far. Yeah. Makes and busy lifestyle, of course, also. Well, from here, I want to talk about how you view the future of the relations between these two people, and in terms of the community that you're running for the Greek here in Egypt. What do you wish to see being established, worked on, renovated, to be able to connect back again the network of the number that is currently here, and possibly attract larger numbers from Greek in the upcoming period?
Investments.
What kind of investments would be interesting for the Greeks at this era?
Any field. Greeks are interested in any field. They can work in
What
any
are they
field.
best in? What do they best do? I do know, maybe we would see that in Egyptian movies. Like they're good at bargaining and selling and working as...
we don't bargain much.
We don't?
Much.
Oh, you as the Egyptian side of you, or the Greek side?
This is the Greek part now.
Yeah, you no bargains? No.
Very, very few. But not the way we are.
But you're very good with
Egypt.
selling and
Yes,
marketing. That's
yes,
what
marketing,
specifically
yes.
what I meant. Yeah.
Yes, trades in general.
Yeah.
Agriculture, very good. They are good in agriculture, in trades. Lots of investments can be done in Egypt generally, and especially for Greeks. Lots of factories can be opened. Okay, in cement, in chips, in many things.
What would you also suggest you would want to renovate or see renovated? That is something that was very popular for years, but has become either low profile or isolated or haunted, if I may say.
As for me, my wish was especially to see renovated all the downtown, and it's already happening.
Yes, it happened. Because it has what, a special essence for the Greek
not only for
communities?
the Greeks, Greeks, Italians, English, French, and many citizens, foreign citizens, they were living in Egypt as well, but especially for the Greeks, especially the old, the old Greek generation.
Yes.
They would love to see those beautiful buildings renovated, and it's
now, as a tour guide and also a active member of the Greek community, let's talk more about the age group or bracket that is currently present here in Egypt or comes to visit Egypt, and what are their interests? And from dealing with them and talking with them, and you're very definitely fluent in the Greek language. What do you hear them say? What are they interested in that maybe you would want officials or certain organizations to be, or institutions to start taking seriously and working hard on to attract or make these thoughts become realities on concrete ground?
In tourism generally, the Greeks, once they are visiting Egypt, they do have lots of good facilities. Okay? Of course, the archaeological sites are renovated, and thanks God we do have an excellent Minister of Tourism and Antiquities, Professor Dr. Khaled Al-Anani.
He knows what he's doing.
He knows very well what he's doing, because his first job was a tour guide. So the gentleman, he knows quite well what he's doing. And he's very, very active. So in tourism, the ages are coming to Egypt are between 5 till 90. The people over 60, that would be the second or the third time or the fourth time to come to Egypt. Any Greek comes to Egypt once, they
has to come back again.
Of course, yes.
And
they
maybe that's
promise
something.
They will come again. And I had lots of clients, double and triple time, many things, many times.
And would you hear them specifically recalling or talking about what do they like best doing? What would they like best seeing happen if they think of moving in? What do they best want to do, or do they praise?
Just to live. Lots of them, they are telling me when we will get our senior citizenship, we will come and live here.
Which part of Egypt do they specifically like to settle in?
In Cairo,
in Egypt in general.
In Egypt in general, anywhere with sea. Alexandria.
Sea or sea. Mediterranean Sea, because usually people who like the Mediterranean Sea don't favor the Red Sea and vice versa. I have no idea why, but it seems to be a nature maybe.
Alexandria side and North Coast and this area, or the Red Sea.
Anything that's on the sea.
Exactly.
So they need to live beside water.
Yes.
I believe that this is something that communities who are used to living by the sea can't live in populated, crowded traffic
it's true.
cities.
Athens is supposed to be crowded, but all Athens is not more than 5 million. So when they come to Cairo, they are having a shock.
I mean, what about the fact that training people, Greeks in Egypt, and also changing expertise between Greece and Egypt in the upcoming period? Education, we have a lot of technical schools and new universities that are opening up under the leadership of President Al-Sisi, who is always keen for cooperation with countries around the world. And when it comes to Greece, there's a very mutual, close, as you said, ties and common grounds. So in terms of the kind of specializations or exchange in expertise between both nations, what do you personally suggest?
For me? As for me, my only dream is to have a Greek university.
Why is it important to have a Greek university?
No, it's not really important, I could say, but this is my dream.
Oh, yeah, why significantly the Greek university?
Because when our kids finished school, most of them or half of them, they would like to go to Greece to study in a Greek university.
You mean speaking a Greek language?
Yes.
That's what's important.
Yes.
So does that mean that the language is still a barrier for citizens who live here? Is it difficult to cope in understanding a mutual or
it's
different
not exactly
language?
a barrier, but why do they leave? I don't want them to leave. I want them to stay here, to keep on being the Greeks of Egypt. So they get
Why
married.
Do they leave from your perspective? You would know better. You speak to them.
Well, why? Because lots of young generation, most of them, okay, they think that once they go to Europe, is the freedom, is that they can do whatever they like, and it's easy, everything is simple, everything is nice, and which is completely the opposite, because in Europe, once you do not work, you'll be kicked out. In Egypt, no. You will find someone who will support you, even in your work. Even if you don't work 100%, your colleague will help you a bit.
Yes.
No, in Europe, no.
And maybe that's why I would stress on this question, because during the past 5 years of your experience in both fields, whether as a tour guide for Greeks or active member of the Greek community. What are the feedback of the Greek people who are visiting? Because Egypt has changed during the past 5 years. And part of it is that freedom and open opportunities and so forth. So what are their thoughts about Egypt recently for those who have been coming in for the past couple of years?
Well, actually, their first comment is that Egypt is implementing and it's running very, very fast.
Especially that they both countries had strict austerity measures being taken. Yes. So how's the comparison in this perspective from their side?
No, Egypt is running. Egypt is booming, and it will boom actually. And we can see all the national projects. For God's sake, in 5 years, nowhere would happen. Nowhere. They work 24/7 for 5-6 years. For God's sake, that's amazing. That's amazing, and everybody talks about it. Even in Greece, most of the people, they are calling President El Sisi the man of project. I had an interview with the Greek radio a week or a couple of weeks before, and we were talking about Egypt and so on. And I was explaining what national projects are happening, and what's the difference between 5 years now and 6 years earlier. So they said, yes, we do call him, about the President El Sisi, we do call him a man of projects. That's a title.
That's a title. That's an honorable title. Yes.
It's a legend. It's impossible to do all those projects in such a short period of time. For God's sake, I assume he's not sleeping.
I see the Greek side of you being surprised of how this happens.
No,
you're absolutely
all
right.
Egyptians are surprised as well. I'm proud of it. Not only surprised, I'm proud. Being a Greek Egyptian, I'm proud
of what's happening.
Of being here. Of course.
Well, we're proud and happy that you also joined us here
this
evening, Mr. George Rectsinis, if I pronounced that right. Rectsinis, Greek tour guide, active member of the Greek community. Thank you very much for joining me this evening.
The pleasure is all mine. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And that brings us to the end of our episode of the Daily Debate. Thank you for watching.